And so after the shooting takes place, you witnessed something which you did not talk about for more than 50 years. It was right in the aftermath of the assassination, and the first time you shared this story was in your book. It's one of several stories that you've never shared before. So you saw somebody with a rifle outside of this building.
That is correct.
Briefly tell us that.
Well, Mr. Shelley and Billy had gone down toward the triple underpass to try to find out what actually had happened. There was a tremendous amount of people that day on the sidewalk. The sidewalk out here is pretty wide, but I mean, they were just like, excuse the expression, like sardines in a can. There wasn't any room. I mean, if someone passed out, they would never hit the concrete. There's so many people. So they had gone down to see if they could find out what actually was going on. Well, I stood on the steps for a few short time, and then I said, well, I'm going to go see if I can find Billy and Mr. Shelley. So I go start down that way, and out in front of this building here used to be angle parking. And so I was somewhere down in the area of the angle parking there, and I was walking along, and I looked up, and there was a man with a rifle. I was terrified. Stop and think, what actually happened there 58 years ago today? That's a crime of the century. It's never been solved. So I saw this man. This man was not a policeman. He was not a detective. If you could have seen the type of clothing he was wearing that day, this guy was a professional, all the way down to his shoes. His shoes probably cost several $100s. And back then, in 1963, not many people wore shoes or in that price range. His clothing was such much greater quality. I talked to my friend Jim Lavelle about that. Jim Lavelle had a new suit he wore the day they was transporting Lee from the city jail, the headquarters, down to the city jail here.
That suit is downstairs on display on the 6th floor right now.
Yes. So he and I talked about the clothing, and I told him, I said, you know, that's something that I always admired, was clothing. But the attire this man wore, starting off with his fedora, you know, telling what the hat cost. His clothing, he was immaculate. This guy was a pro. He looked at me, and the look he had on his face was a cold look. He wasn't scared. He knew exactly what he was doing. And I was so scared, he probably thought I couldn't remember my name. And at that time, I probably couldn't have. But he puts the rifle in the back seat of his car. He's parked out at the angle parking. And he closes the trunk and goes to open the door on his car. I turn around and I walk slowly back toward the front entrance of the Texas School Book Depository. I was so scared. What I had witnessed that day and that time, I did see it. But if you'd have asked me 10 minutes later, I would have told you I didn't see anything. It was locked in my mind. I've read about this where people have witnessed things that were so frightening to them, it's just locked into their mind. And that's exactly what happened to me. And I walked back slowly toward the front steps of the Texas School Book Depository, but I didn't go up the steps. I went to the corner of Houston and Elm Street. And there was a couple of people there, and we started to talk about what was going on. And then I turned to my left, and walking, he comes off the dock, the loading dock here, this building, was Lee Harvey Oswald. Walked alongside of the building, very patiently, not in a hurry. And I thought he was going to walk all the way up to where I was, but he did not. He stopped probably 10 feet or so before, and he went diagonally across, got in the crosswalk, crossed Houston, and once he crossed Houston Street, then he crossed Elm Street. And halfway across Elm, somebody said something to me, and I turned to see who was talking to me, because I did not recognize the voice. And when I looked back, I had lost Lee in the crowd.
Now, these are obviously some very extraordinary memories, and you're well aware of it. In your affidavit from that day, your Warren Commission testimony, you discuss seeing the parade pass and then immediately going downstairs to the basement to have your lunch. So, I mean, these additions to your story have come under some scrutiny by assassination researchers. You mentioned you were scared, and I know you write about this in some detail in the book, but I mean, give us a sense. You were afraid for yourself and afraid for your family to reveal some of this information?
Yes, I was, but
During that encounter with the detectives leading into your interrogation or circumstances with Will Fritz, when did you find out along the way that Lee was the man that had been arrested? And how did that make you feel that the man you drove to work that day was now under arrest for the murder of the president?
well, I found out about that when they arrested me out at the hospital in Irving, Texas. And I asked them, I said, and they said, we're arresting you. And I said, what are you arresting me for? They said, for the assassination of John F. Kennedy. And I said, I have nothing to do with that. And they said, oh, you know the man who did it. I'd like to close on, if you go out to the front of this building, there's a sign about, yay big, about like that, over on the corner. It says that he is the alleged assassin. When you really look into it, Lee was never convicted of anything because he never went before a judge and a jury. And some people may find that strange because you can read in a lot of books out there. I think there's been over 3,000 books written about this assassination. And a lot of them tell you very strongly that he is the assassin. Well, were they there? No. Where did they get their facts? Hearsay. I think we need to be interested in this, but leave it as it is. He is the alleged assassin. We don't know whether he did that or not. I don't think he did because of the way he conducted himself when I worked with him. He's always nice and polite to me. And it's every Friday. It wasn't the last day of school for the week. It's a day that I brought Lee out to Irving. And all the kids in the neighborhood would come up to Miss Payne's house and play around that big oak tree, by the way, which stands there today. And I was over there a little over a week ago with two gentlemen, and I said, have you ever asked yourself if this tree could really talk, what stories it could tell you about Lee Oswald and the time he spent with the children playing around that oak tree? My little nieces just thought, they thought he was so fun and he was so kind to them.
Thank you very much. And please join me in thanking this extraordinary gentleman, Buell Frazier, for sharing his story today.
Thank you.